Recording in. Okay, welcome. Okay. So just inhaling and exhaling through our nose on this beautiful Saturday morning. It's almost June, who can believe it? And then just listen comfortably, breathing in and out through your nose. I'm just going to do small chants. Shankam Chakram Jalaokam Dadadam Ritagatam Charudorbis Chaturbi Sukshma Swachati Hridyam Shuka Parivilasan Maulimam Bojanetram Kalam Bodojvalankam Katitata Vilasacharupitam Paradyam Vande Danvantarim Tam Nikila Garavana Praudha Davagnileelam. Thank you everyone for being here today. So I come as the representative. I'm on the board, the Arizona Ayurveda Professionals of Arizona, 501(c) group. And we're a meeting community-based group who really our mission, and I'm going to show you our website at the end and kind of steer you towards that, because really what we want to do, I'm the board, I'm in charge of education and education outreach to the public. So we're going to do a series of these introduction to Ayurveda workshops, little classes. And so it serves as a template, right, for future ones. And actually what I'd like to do, and with the help of our members too, and is to actually go to yoga studios or to community places of, where like coffee shops or community places where we can meet, community meeting places. So we could do a class like this and bring the information of Ayurveda to the state of Arizona. So this is the first one actually in the series and hopefully we want to do one every quarter. And so this is meant just to get you excited and curious so that you can go off and try or book a Ayurvedic consultation with people in your area. And where are we coming from here? So my name is Melissa Camacho. I'm an Ayurvedic doctor, licensed certified by the National Ayurvedic Medical Association Certification Board. So I've been doing Ayurveda since 2005, first as a cook and then later as a practitioner and a clinician. I have my own clinic, my own office, my own clinic in Northern Arizona, Sedona, Arizona. So I'm in the village of Oak Creek in the VOC, where actually today it's really warm. I'm actually in Cottonwood right now, but it's warm here. Where are we from? I know we have a few people. We have Charisse here, who's from up here where I am. Jen, where are you based out of again?
Southern California.
That's what I thought. Southern California. That's right. Okay. And Paradise Valley, Deborah. Deborah is our vice president of our organization. So thank you so much for being here today, Deborah. And then Brooke, where are you coming in from?
I'm actually in the process of moving back to Gilbert. I've been living in Puerto Rico for the last 7 years, so
Ooh,
relocating.
Rico. Wow, that's exciting. Oh, okay. Well, welcome. Welcome. I could talk about the islands and my friends, but we'll pass. But I'm really excited to share this with you. And in this particular class, I get really excited because we only have an hour, so I try to get as much in, but I try not to overwhelm. But for me, Ayurveda is so big to me, and it's been such a huge part of my life that when I do something like this, it's like I have a love-hate relationship with it because I want to share a lot, but I don't want to overwhelm you. And what do I choose to share? There's so much. So I get so passionate about it, and I get so my words all get like ahead of each other, and I get high vata just talking about it. So, and what it is, what makes me so passionate about it is this medicine is exciting. And here in the States right now, it's changing and it's evolving and it's it's being shared more so now, I believe, than ever. And so when I hear and when I talk to people, when I hear people talk about it, and when I talk to people about it, I feel this sort of pulse that's happening underneath, right? This sort of like people get so excited when they hear it, when they hear about it. Something like a light switch goes off, and they get, and it's really. And that's really a true thing that's happening right now. It's not just individuals that are feeling this pull, this excitement. It's actually a true thing that's evolving around us in our culture. And so it's something that I love to share, and I love to I love I love being here with you today to share it. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint? Is that what you all see? Yeah. Okay. I need to change my, there we go. That's better. Okay, so Introduction to Ayurveda, Whole Body Health for Modern Life. This is what we have here. So this is what we're going to discuss. What is Ayurveda? What is Ayurveda? 3 principles. So as we do these series of introductions over, sorry. Turn that off. As we do these series of introductions over years, over how long we're going to be doing this, how long we keep the fire going, so to speak, we'll always talk about, my vision is we'll always talk about 3 principles of Ayurveda, at least 3. There are many principles. It is a whole medicine. So, but today we'll talk about 3 principles, the concept of health in Ayurveda, the tridosha, the concept of the 3 doshas, and then what's the last one? Oh yeah, Samanya Vishesha. So we talk about like increase is like and opposites balance. So we'll talk about those 3 things. So what is Ayurveda? How many people have already, if I could get my screen to show everyone, that would be great. How many people have already had a class on it or have heard of it? There we go. Does everybody, yeah, I'm seeing face, yeah. So it became really popular to put into 200-hour level yoga teacher trainings, and that's usually where people hear about it. They usually hear about it through their yoga teachers or in a yoga class or in that sort of context. But in Ayurveda is a 2,000 to 3,000 year old medicine originating from India. And with yoga, naturopathy, Unani medicine, Siddha medicine, and homeopathic medicine make up India's natural and traditional medical landscape. So it is considered an Upaveda or a subsidiary or an adjunct Veda to one of the 4 Vedas called Atharva Veda, and one of the other Vedas of the 4 main Vedas is Rig Veda, and it takes a little bit from Rig Veda also. So that chant that I did at the beginning is actually from the Rig Veda. So it is very old. It's a very foundational and very old system of Vedic culture. The Vedic culture is based on the 4 Vedas, and Atharva Veda again is one of those, and then Ayurveda kind of offshoots from that. It is translated as the science. There you go. It is translated as the science of life or the knowledge of life. We have 2 Sanskrit words here, and I should give you a heads up. So Sanskrit I'll be saying some Sanskrit. Well, you don't need to know Sanskrit to do Ayurveda. You don't need to know Sanskrit to interact with an Ayurvedic practitioner. It's just, it comes very naturally to us, so they'll come right off. So if I say anything that you miss, just stop me and ask and say, what was that again? Or if it was a Sanskrit word, then I could, I can modify so as to get the communication out clearer. So Ayurveda, two parts of Sanskrit here, Ayu and Veda. Ayu means life, and Veda means science or knowledge of, and them put together is Ayurveda. The tenets and the roots of knowledge of this medicine comes from our classical texts, which we as practitioners revere. So these classical texts are these volumes of books that were written in the Samhita period, which is between 1500 BCE and 500 BCE. They call that the Samhita period. And these are the books in which all of the knowledge of Ayurveda that we have today have come from and kind of sprouted from. This flower of beautiful knowledge here have come from these books. And so I mentioned this because you'll see a quote from one of them, and yeah, I may like interject a little bit of that knowledge in here too. So these volumes are the Charaka Samhita. You don't need to know this. I just Charaka Samhita, the Sushruta Samhita, Ashtanga Hridaya or Hridayam. So these three books, these are where we get the foundation of our knowledge, and they again emerged during the Samhita period, 1500 to 500 BC. So what a lot of people don't know about Ayurveda is that the scope of Ayurveda as a medicine is far-reaching, meaning that we can treat what we can treat. It is what we can treat is far-reaching, or let's say it this way, what the medicine can treat is far-reaching. Now, as the evolution of Ayurveda has evolved and moved from the Indian subcontinent out to the West, the scope of practice, or what we have strength as treating as it is evolved, has evolved, right? And that has a lot to do with our scope of practice legally, has a lot to do with what teachers saw, what was needed in the US. I really do believe, I should tell you, so I went to the Ayurvedic Institute in 2005 to 2007 when it was out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with Dr. Fasant Lad. Dr. Lad is known as the grandfather of Ayurveda here in the West. And I really do feel like his teaching, though it is very lineage-based as well as classical-based, meaning that his knowledge comes from his lineage and his teachers, but also from this classical volumes that I just mentioned. I really feel like his strength when he came here was really talking to people about their mind and their stress and what was ailing them physically that had to do with also psychological aspects of it. And so what came about here through his lineage are a lot of people who were comfortable, a lot of practitioners who were comfortable in assessing from that point of view. And that's not necessary for all practitioners. And it's not, frankly, it's not, it's not everyone's strength, which is no problem, right? I mean, it just, when you connect with someone who teaches and practices Ayurveda, it is just like when you're connecting with a doctor in allopathic medicine, though we look at the body more fully, there are people that, who are, their strength is more of the mental, psychological aspect, who's more of the physical, maybe osteopathic aspect, OBGYN aspect. We're trained usually in all of these aspects, but there are people that are more comfortable or come from a more of a lineage that kind of sways into certain categories. And that's life in the US and being a practitioner in the US, right? When there's more demand, depending on where you live, then you become an expert. You see it over and over again, and so that's how you practice. But Ayurveda as a whole medicine is very far-reaching. It includes internal medicine, pediatrics, surgery, psychology, ear, nose, and throat medicine, longevity, which is a big buzzword these days, longevity, toxicology, and sexual medicine or aphrodisiacs. So this is often it is often a surprise when I tell people about this because we just know it from the scope of how it's evolved here in the West, but it's a huge, and when you go to India, you'll see it's a huge, the scope of practice of what the medicine can do is pretty big, which is great, which is awesome, which is what we need now. And this is why I'm excited to do these series. Ayurveda is known as anadi, meaning that it has no beginning and it has no end. It is eternal. So the information that it has, the information that it can give to the people on earth now is eternal. It is meant to have begun as soon as men and women were on earth. So this information, and as you dive more deeply into this information, you'll see that actually that makes sense. You see that there are truths that we'll talk about today, the characteristics, some of the characteristics of, or these gunas, these characteristics of the doshas. With these adjectives that we use to describe this aspect of physical health, they are universal. You know, they're universal. Like when I go like this in India, everyone knows that that's cold. I'm cold. You know, when I go like this here, everyone knows that means cold. There are characteristics, there are aspects of being a human that are universal. And actually, Ayurveda has that knowledge. It is eternal, it is inherent in nature, and it has been revealed through what we call the rishis for the benefit of the whole humanity. Isn't this beautiful? It's so beautiful. So this is aspects of Ayurveda. Also, as is stated in the Charaka Samhita, Sutrasthana, line 41, Hita, hitam, sukam, dukam, ayustasya, hita, hitam. Manam chatacha yatrokam ayurvedaha sauchyate. So what that means is that Ayurveda as a medicine is that which deals with the good, the bad, the blissful and sorrowful life. So that which deals what is good for life, which is bad for life. And it entails that in the teachings of Ayurveda, which is blissful, causes a happy life and a sorrowful life. And that which is wholesome and unwholesome for life and for the body. And it is about longevity and about life is what life is itself. So isn't that beautiful too, right? So this is a whole encompassing medicine. And as we go into the next concept of health in Ayurveda, we pull again from one of our other classical books here, the Sushruta Samhita, Sutrasthana, chapter 15, line 41, Health According to Ayurveda. The doshas, which we're going to talk about, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, most people who have at least heard of Ayurveda know about the doshas in some way, right? And doshic information and education is very vast, and we'll talk about that. But it is stated the doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Agni, and Dhatu in a state of equilibrium. That's health according to Ayurveda, the proper function and elimination of feces, sweat, and urine, the malas, happy, serene state of the soul, Atma, the senses, Indriya, and the mind. This is health according to Ayurveda. So the last time that you walked into an allopathic office, did they talk to you about this? And them, and you know, this is not spoken about. I'm like making myself chuckle here because this is not something that as Westerners we are accustomed when we go to our PCP, when we go to the allopathic side, you know, when we go to our doctors where they often will mention some of these things and we don't take it aside. People who don't even know Sanskrit, people who just walk off the street, but we know the happy, serene state of the soul and the senses and the mind. We know those words, and those aren't often discussed in allopathic medicine. So this idea of Ayurveda and why it's so good for modern life, or why, why in modern life right now it's so needed, is because it includes so much. This umbrella of health, this umbrella of what healthy is, includes so much. So much so that though, in our culture right now, Western medicine, or really it's Western culture, it's not, this idea of the health of mental health and the importance of mental health, I don't think I know for a fact, has not been pushed by allopathic medicine. It's more pushed by a culture who is seeing everyone around them, the culture around them, suffer, right? We've seen the loneliness of what COVID isolation has done. We've seen the effect of violence, right, on our men. We've seen the effect of sexual violence on our women as a culture. We see what that does to us, our brothers and sisters, over a period of time. And as a culture, we're waking up little by little to the fact that mental health is not only important, but it's necessary. It is our birthrights. It is who we are to be happy. It is who we are to be excited about living. And right now on earth, we're waking up to it more and more. And it's we're having a little growth pains with it, right? We're having a little bit of conflict and a little bit of tantrum around it, but we're waking up to it, right? And this is one of the aspects of why Ayurveda right now is, I believe, is important and is exciting and is like getting a little bit more popular, right? So here we are here with the word dosha, vata, pitta, kapha. So we're going to talk about that. So just generally, I'm just going to say the doshas are the dushyanti iti doshaha. These we're going to go into more of detail a little bit later, but the Agni, when I say Agni here, it's the digestion, it's the digestive fire, it's the strength of digestion. Dhatu here is the tissues, the bodily tissues. So really the support system of the body or the tissues, just to translate those, the proper function of the elimination of the feces. So the proper function of being able to poop on a regular basis, being able to sweat regularly. This is important. And this is something that gets overlooked, right? Some people don't sweat, especially as you get older. Some people don't sweat and they really, really need to sweat. It is one way that the body needs to get the toxins out. But so sweating, this is also something when I talk to my patients and I ask them about them sweating, they'll often say things like, no one ever talks to me. No one's ever really asked me this before, and it's one thing that we all do, our practitioners in Ayurveda, we talk about urine, right? Urine, we talk a little bit about more so, but yeah, urine actually too, as we get older, becomes really important to look at and to become accustomed to. Happy, serene state of the soul, we know that. And the definition of soul is different for everyone. But that itself is we could do a whole big, 300-hour discussion about the soul. And it's funny with Dr. Ladd. So we would have the last hour of Friday evenings, AP. So first year classes, the last hour was always talking about the soul, we had this sort of satsang, this sort of question and answer and interaction with Dr. Ladd. And so it's something that, as we all know, that many philosophers and many people have discussed and nurtured and love to share with other people and love to lift other people up. It's a conversation around that aspect. The senses, so how sharp are the senses? And as we get older, like hearing, sight get affected, taste got affected quite largely with COVID, but I mean, taste gets affected in different aspects of treatment for a lot of patients. If you've gone through radiation or chemo, you know that, taste is a sense that we may take for granted. We may not, right? Hearing, sight, touch. So, and then the mind. and the state of the mind, and which state and how the mind affects all of these. Actually, I think Ayurveda is an expert medicine in that context and how the mind affects the rest of the body. So going on. Okay, so tridosha, this is one of the basic principles we'll talk about today. What are the doshas? Okay. So what we have here, did I put it? Yeah, what we have here, the doshas, when in balance, are the support systems, the supportive aspects, the supportive dhatu of the body. When out of balance is the cause of disease and imbalance. I am imbalance. So when they're in balance, they are support system. When they're out of balance, they are the root cause of disease. So they are, Sushruta, one of our teachers, called them also and referred to them as 3 pillars. They're responsible for their health, for our health, when they're in the normal state. So we have this idea of them being a support system. They're part of the support. So it's really interesting. And this is when I talk to, I go back a bit. Okay. When I talk to my students about this, because the doshas, most people, like people will come up to me and they'll say, you know, I'm this, I'm that, I'm vata, or I'm pitta, I'm kapha. And the truth is that dosha, it has takes on different aspects with different vocabulary, meaning that when someone comes up to you, and you probably have all heard this before, and this is essentially what this illustration is indicating, is that one aspect of the doshas is that it is your constitution. It is that which is your prakruti, or the constitution in which was determined at the time of conception by your parents. Right? It's your unique ratio of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, which are the elements as determined at conception by your parents. So there's one aspect of this where it is the concept of one's constitution. It is the concept of that which you are made out of, that which is you, that was determined by your parents. This constitution, this Vata, Pitta, Kapha, this idea doesn't ever really change. It changes only at the time of death. But let's look at this for a second. So in Ayurveda, according to Ayurveda Siddhanta basic principle, Vata dosha is made out of 2 elements, ether and air. Okay, so we're talking the big picture here is that in this medicine, this body is made out of the elements. We are an elemental being. We are matching nature in that we are made out the same elements inside here that you see outside there, right? That's also another principle, Siddhanta of Ayurveda. So that concept in Ayurveda becomes very real. It becomes very grounded. So hence, here we go. Vata dosha is made out of air and ether elements. Pitta dosha is made out of fire and water elements. And Kapha dosha is made out of water and earth elements. Now, when this is how this gets represented, how this gets expressed in the body is as a sort of constitution. And though prakriti is the word that we use for one's constitution, it is, most Westerners know the concept or the word of constitution. So what I also like to always add to this when I talk to my patients is that it's constitution and propensity towards, right? It's constitution and propensity towards, and at the same time, we have to think very precisely about predominance, right? We're always made out of all of the elements, right? We're made out of all of them, but we have a predominance towards 1 or 2 of them. So what ends up happening in our constitutions, when we have those predominance, then we have a propensity towards attracting or more of that which we have a propensity towards. Okay. So what does that look like? That looks like a person, again, looking at the diagram here, we have Vata, Pitta, Kapha, we have male, female, male, female, male, female, and all these. So the predominance of the constitution that one could have is a Vata predominant, whereas you'll see in this diagram here, there's a smaller frame, they're a little lanky, they have characteristics of all that which are Vata, which we're going to talk about those also. And then when they're Pitta predominant, you have the medium, right? The fire and water elements are more predominant. So you have a medium body size. You have fire come out in different ways, like in moles and in hair and in tinge of skin color, that sort of thing. And then Kapha, you have water and earth. They tend to be heavier. They have the propensity towards heaviness. So they have the propensity towards being able to gain weight, that sort of thing. So a little bit thicker, a little bit, the characteristics of water and earth, a little bit hardier, like heavier too, stable. So as we digest these ideas, this idea, just think about ourselves, if we can think about ourselves as we are nature and nature is us. And if we were to go outside today and to meditate in our front yard, backyard, and we say, universe, show me what air looks like, then actually that wouldn't be such a hard thing to meditate on, right? We kind of, how do we usually see air out in nature? How do we usually see it? If we were to meditate on it and just to think about it, if we were to meditate, how do we usually see air? Anybody have any ideas? I'll give you a hint. We usually see it when it's a little bit strong in action, right? What does that usually look like? Brooke, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say the wind or
Yeah,
trees and
yeah.
trees.
Yeah, and look at leaves on trees blowing. Yep, Sherry said that too. Yes, we usually see like a windy aspect of it, right? We usually see this windy aspect. So in a very basic way, you already have a tangible experience of what Vata dosha is. Okay? So not only am I using this as an educational tool for you to think about how to describe something like air, but I'm also using it as an educational tool for you to realize that actually we're connected to that. We are that. And in Ayurveda, we assert that as one of our principles. What's happening inside us and what is us is out there. Our connection to nature is not this just theoretical thing. Our connection with nature is actually a real thing. And as you dive deeper into the studies of Ayurveda, you see that over and over and over again. I say this because right now we feel disconnected. A lot of people do. Maybe not you all, beautiful people, but a lot of people feel disconnected to nature. And one of the things that I feel is a root cause of a lot of disease is that sense of disconnection and that sense of not connecting on a regular basis with nature. So I always like to stress that this connection that we have, this thought that we have, this evolution that we could have of thought on nature is so important to have because actually it's us. And I feel like one of our salvations, like one of the things that would just hype us up to make us feel good is actually to encourage this connection that we have in nature, and once we have that connection, once we get to think about that, at least if, a little bit longer, then it actually informs a worldview. This worldview actually gets informed. Okay, I'm gonna get off that diatribe for a minute and move on to Pitta. Pitta, fire and water. So if we were to just meditate on fire and water, we go outside and we meditate, let's say fire, because essentially this Pitta combination is about 20% water and about mostly fire. But they are still together. But so what do you usually notice when you just think about fire? out in nature.
The only thing that comes to my mind is when it's hot. I mean,
Yeah.
I really
That's what I was going for. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
See, and so it's hot, right, guys? Like this is at the very basic. Not only is this facilitating, like this is getting to like, oh, I think Sharice wrote something too, to like the crux of the matter, but forest fires, volcano, exactly. Yes, Sharice, yeah. So I also am just bringing these to light, like hot, something like hot and something like wind. These are universal concepts. Like you go to any country and people know what hot is. People know that if especially if you're standing next to a tree, and it's like they know that that's wind. These are universal concept. Yes, first right off the bat, it's hot, right? And then kapha. So the thing with kapha is that when we observe and when we tune into kapha dosha, this is the dosha that we now, if we wanted to, all get in the same room. Let's all go to Brooks. Let's go to Brooks. Let's go to Puerto Rico right now. Let's fly over to Brooks and go and get some water and earth. We all can do this. We can all get some dirt and we can get some water and we can mix it up and then we can talk to each other about what we feel. It's the densest, right? It's the densest of the elements here and how it comes together in the body. And then those characteristics take on the characteristics of those people who are kapha predominant, right? And so you could see physically these are tangible things, but we could see how they are represented in the body and how the foundation of this medicine is how they're represented in the body. And the curiosity I hope I'm sparking in you all right now is that, oh, then how does this all get represented in the body? Because that's what we study and that's how we pull people in, that's what we study and this is what we do. Okay, so just briefly then, those are just the briefly. So the base constitutions can be Vata predominant, Pitta predominant, Kapha predominance. Now, your constitution could also be a combination of the following. You can be Vata Pitta predominant, Vata Kapha predominant, Pitta Kapha predominant, or tridoshic, Vata Pitta and Kapha. Now, the characteristics of what this looks like is a larger discussion, and there's a ton on the internet about this, right? And there's different lineages that take on different roles. The classical, aspects takes on a really interesting role too. In Chataka, one of our teachers from the classic volumes, talks about how Vata is a bad friend as part of like a characteristic of Vata. And it's very matter of fact. There's no judgment around it. They're bad friends because they're too flighty. They're too airy. Like they can't remember. They don't. But a Kapha is a good water and earth aspect, the kapha predominant person is a great friend. They're stable, they'll always help you, they'll remember you, that sort of thing. Though, I don't ever recall Dr. Ladd ever saying, don't be a friend with a Vata because they're bad friends. So it's evolved like the utilization of these characteristics. But there's much more to say around this, right? And this is usually what brings people in. Like you go onto a website like Banyan Botanicals, or you go onto a website like Everyday Ayurveda, and they have these quizzes. Who's taking the quizzes? Is anyone taking the Ayurveda dosha quizzes? Yeah, yeah. They're good teaching tools, right? But they're good teaching tools because you could actually see the characteristics of Vata Pitta Kapha come out and you can use them educationally. But there definitely needs to be a sort of visit to a trained professional, to an Ayurvedic practitioner to kind of talk you through some of the aspects. They're not 100% accurate. They're interesting though, and they bring more people into Ayurveda for sure. So this, which we just talked about, is not an exclusive, like full binding, right? This is just an introduction to this idea. And this is a unique idea, right? It's a unique idea. Allopathic medicine does not recognize this idea, does not recognize a difference that they have to make when someone who is in front of them and has a certain way about them, has a certain look about them versus someone who has another look about them, meaning that they are allopathic medicine. And the foundation of allopathic medicine is really standardization, meaning that they're going to treat everyone the same, no matter how tall you are, no matter how much you weigh, no matter they're treating it's standardization. To them, that's the foundation of science, right? That's the foundation in the thinking around science. In Ayurveda, because of this concept of prakriti, this is constitutional, the constitutional concept, we treat everyone differently, meaning that one medicine for one person is not going to work the same for another person because of constitution, because of this concept. It is all customized medicine. Ayurveda is the king of customized medicine. It is we are experts in this because we know that everyone is different. Everyone's from a different place. Everyone's at a different time of life. For the most part, everyone has a different constitution. Everyone had a different upbringing. Like, we take this into account when you go to an Ayurvedic practitioner. This makes our medicine different, right? But this is the foundation of that. Okay. So again, I knew this was going to happen. I don't have, so Vata dosha, the concept of Vata dosha, I don't have that much time left, but the concept of Vata dosha has to do a lot with the concept of movement and circulation in the body and everything that encompasses. And that encompasses a lot of things like digestion, certain mental faculties, elimination, life itself, intelligence, cognitive clarity, that is a part of that. So Pitta dosha in general is the concept of heating up the body. And as that, when that gets that is digested a little bit more, for lack of when that is broken down a little bit more, really what that is about metabolism. Taking one thing in the body in one state and metabolizing it or transforming it into another thing. That is all about Pitta dosha. That is the function of Pitta dosha. And what that is metabolism, digestion, transformation. So you're taking one aspect like a food stuff and bringing it down, and then it becomes food. You know, you're taking food, breaking it down, and then it becomes dhatu, not food. It becomes tissue, right? That whole mechanism, and there's so many of them in the body, is the responsibility of Pitta dosha. So when I'm moving into this, we're not talking about the doshas in terms of constitution. We're talking about the doshas in terms of the functionality in the body, the anatomy in the body. So it's another aspect, right? Kapha dosha too. Kapha dosha is overall responsibility of kapha dosha is for the support of the upper body, for lubrication, for wrapping, for enclosing, for binding, like the support, any aspect of support. Also good, also in terms of like lubricating joints, in terms of shocking, like the shock supportive system in the body, and the weight of movement and the weight of tissue, and making it all supportive, making it all bound up, making it all part of the body. This like actual visceral, like denseness of the body. Okay. So I do want to get some money out of. So I am the characteristics of the doshas. I'm going to go straight to here. So as we talk about these air and ether, pitta, fire and water, and kapha, water and earth, what they embody, just like what I just demonstrated, like if you had to think about kapha, what would you think of if you went outside and you meditated on? So as the doshas are part of our anatomy, as well as aspect of our constitution, as they are part of our anatomy, they take on these characteristics, but they also take on not these sort of adjectives. So meaning that, again, if you had to describe air and ether, how would you describe air and ether? Like air and ether, and then these characteristics are what we call gunas. These are basically adjectives for the doshas. So you had to describe vata as parts of our anatomy, or you had to describe vata as our constitution, as parts of our being. What would you say? So these were written down in our texts 3,000 years ago. And these are universal characteristics. These are universal adjectives. These are universal ways in which we can describe this support system, these doshas. So vata is dry, cold, light, subtle, mobile, clear, rough, minute. So if I had to describe, use characteristics, use my adjectives, these are the adjectives associated with vata. So they're very basic, right? Just like what I asked earlier, like the moving, mobile, the moving, you see the wind and it moves. They're very basic. But everything in the universe can be described with these characteristics, right? Everything in the universe that has to do with vata, or that where in which vata is being expressed, can be described in these ways. Okay, so for pitta, if we had to describe pitta, oily, hot, sharp, flowing, sour, liquid, pungent, right? So again, if we had to describe, these are the characteristics. And then kapha is easier to describe. Heavy, cold, soft, oily, sweet, stable, cloudy, right? So I put this in this section because in Ayurveda, like increases like, and opposites decrease. So if, let's say, the characteristics, let's go with rough. I'll go with rough. Characteristic of vata is rough. And rough is like dry to an extent, like dry on the spectrum, too much dry, rough. So how would we say when there's too much rough, how can we say that may affect us, physically? What would it look like if something was too dry, too dry, too dry? Or what it would look like if something was rough? Another way to say it. Anyone have any ideas? No? So how about, have you ever had a bunion? Or have you ever skidded and fell and a piece of your hand got like scabbed and then it got like rough, the skin? So the most easiest example of this is on the skin. We see rough skin. We see in certain infections, like in our feet, we'll see the skin get so rough and then it cracks, right? This is just an example of how some of these characteristics may play out in our body. Sometimes some would even say that has anyone ever had constipation? Oh wait, Cherise might be saying stuff. Cracked heels. That's Deborah. Yeah. Hi, Deborah. Thank you. Dry hair, rough and inflamed skin. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So constipation also, if anyone had constipation, some people might describe it as feeling very dry, like coming out of their bottom, right? Like a dryness, like the rabbit pellets. That often gets described as like dryness, like they could actually feel like their feces is dry, or the opposite, right? Where the feces is maybe watery. So there are characteristics, and this is, again, I'm just dipping into this so that you all are curious, because so that you could go on to talk to people about this that maybe connects to something that you're feeling in your own body, right? That maybe some of you that want to study this more deeply, that maybe it could like spark something in you to kind of like pull the thread in. But this is how we think, and how we utilize what we know about nature and about characteristics of these doshas into our bodies. This is how we get there within ourselves. We bring this awareness around these characteristics and we connect them into our bodies. Therefore, connecting more deeply into ourselves, and also, so getting more into our bodies, getting more grounded into it, but also seeing how, in a real way, how we are connected to nature using these concepts. Okay, does that, everybody follow that? Or is that, okay, so what does the body need? And let's go, how can Ayurveda help? So when you go to an Ayurvedic practitioner, then it's going to be a little bit, and here's the Ayurveda professionals of Arizona, it's going to be a little bit different. It may be longer, a little bit longer, but again, we look at the whole body. We talk to you about your digestion. We talk to you about your mental state, your state of sleep. Hold on. Okay, thank you. Okay, and we may look at your tongue. We may look at your pulse. I take pulses of my my patients. We may look at your face. We may feel a bit on your, on your energy lines. We may ask you some questions about your family. We may ask you some questions about how you felt in your body when you were younger versus now. So a consultation, hold on, maybe a little bit more in depth and maybe a good conversation. We're listening to your voice. We're looking at your eyes. So when you're there and talking, I mean, with an Ayurvedic practitioner, they may use these words. Part of a lot of practitioners actually do a sort of education, a sort of presentation like this before or during a first consultation, an initial consultation. So it's a little bit more in depth. So how we can help in this country, we have a good array of therapies, a good array of therapists who can help you with herbal suggestions and support, who can help you with supplemental suggestions and support, who could help you with diet and lifestyle measures, which is really where we shine, because of the nature of the evolution of the practice of Ayurveda in this. In this country, there are simple things that can be done for our health. There's simple things that can be done for our digestion. We really shine too at stressing and embarking education around routine. It's really important for Vata dosha, the air and ether dosha, to have a routine, a self-care routine that includes, can include a customizable routine for you. That may include meditation, may include yoga, may include an herbal regimen, may include little things with diet or little things with diet that you can do, foods that you can and cannot eat. So our reach and how we can help goes quite far, actually. It could also include like suggesting therapies such as certain massages, certain treatments, suggesting and showing you how to do some self-care using oils. Yeah. Okay, so, and here is a good place. This is the Ayurveda Professionals Arizona, azayurveda.org. We have a directory here of practitioners. And so wherever you find yourself, this is a good resource to get some help. And I just want to say thank you. I know that was like a quick. It all goes by so quick. But I wanted to know if you had any questions. Anybody have any questions? Hi, Deborah.
I have a
Let's see.
question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Where's a good resource to just to learn more about it, just to be more familiar with Ayurveda? Like, what do you suggest?
Okay, so this is what I think. I think a good place to start is YouTube. Yeah, and
YouTube.
there's a few things. Dr. Ladd's website is actually pretty cool with video and resources. And that's ayurveda.com.
Okay.
And then his YouTube channel is actually pretty good too. He has a really good way about describing getting the the foundations done, getting them expressed clearly. And he's a soft soul and he's a loving soul. He's good, he's soothing. So I would say YouTube, Ayurveda.com. I think his YouTube channel is Ayurprana. He's kind of changed over to that name. So you might want to take a look at that.
I agree with Dr. Lott. Dr. Lott. He also was my first teacher,
Mhm.
and he I don't know if there's still all these free videos on their website, but you can learn directly from Dr. Lott with his lectures that way. But could I also offer too that I like for introductory banyanbotanicals.com. They have lots of articles.
That's true.
About that. And many of our members on the Ayurveda Professionals of Arizona, if you go on individual websites, a lot of us do have a lot of programs. I know I do. I've
Mhm.
authored 4 books. 2 of them are specifically about Ayurveda and introduction to Ayurveda and beyond. So most everybody that is an Ayurveda professional will have some sort of educational resource, but the big chunk of them, of resources, Dr. Lod, Banyan, YouTube, there's just a lot of information out there.
Oh, thank you so much, Deborah. Yes, Deborah has amazing books and beautiful books too. Like pretty books, like great books to dig into. As an RN, I encourage people to continue to talk to allopathic practitioners about Ayurveda to get people in the field more aware and interested. Thank you, Charisse. Actually, Charisse, next year, the National Ayurvedic Medical Association's, the theme is integration. So there's a possibility that it may be close to home. We're not sure yet, but the theme itself is integration. So there's more discussion around, yeah, isn't that great? More discussion around allopathic medicine and Ayurveda and Ayurveda helping and being uh you know in the same conversation as allopathic medicine. Yeah, working together. There you go. Jen, did you do my sister's class? Did you do the children's class? You did the children's class, right?
I did, and she did mention there was parts of it that she mentioned that she went over Ayurvedic a little bit in
Yeah.
her class, and I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been interested in our $200 level, but our $200 level has a good 80 hours. It has a good amount of Ayurveda in it.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for that. I'll check it out.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay. Well, thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Charisse, for being here today. I'm going to stop the recording. And hold on.